Hello guys, Cristiano here. I am a C programmer, learning all those things that I can. Hit the subscribe button, let a comment, that'll help so much the channel. All my videos, you'll be in a fast mode with explanation. I'll reduce the time to be more precise. And you'll face a lot of mistakes and debugs. Everything's calculated, or not. So don't be afraid. The link for all the source codes will be in the description. If you wanna follow, just get your copy. Sometimes we need to work with web services. Typically, we hear about frameworks like Flask and Django for Python or Spring Boot for Java, among others. But it's about C. Do you have some? Of course you have. In this video, we will integrate CVET to SAT. After this, we can use web servers without any problems. We start by creating the file that contains the dependencies for such web server. We adjust the names for the web server and link it with the libraries CVET, DL, and pthread. We create an option to enable web server and we added the dependencies to this build script. We create a header for our web server, including necessary headers for context creation. We define the maximum number for headers that can be added. Here, we bring in the response status enumeration from previous projects. We define the handler to process requests associated with endpoints. We define the context with a CVET callbacks and its handle, along with the attributes for the port, directory, and a list of endpoints. We define the arguments that include the port, directory, and the number of endpoints to be registered. We define the response with the data, size, and the list of headers with a key value pair and the number of headers added. We create the functions for a web server, including init, open, add endpoint, run, response set payload, response set status, respond header add, response send, and close. We adjust the signatures. And we copy them functions to paste in the source file. But before we need to create the source file, we include the headers and we add the functions to begin the implementation. In the init function, we clean the context and initialize the CVET library. We also add the login, not exported yet, it will be externalized later. We create the first helper function. And the log function always returns 1. In the open function, we test the arguments, port, and endpoints. If everything is valid, we assign the port and directory to the context. Then, we create a list based on the number of endpoints. We create an internal structure named Webserver request, which includes the endpoint, method, handler, and the user data address. We proceed to add endpoint, where we create a local instance for the request type, receive the endpoint, method, handler, and data, and test if everything is correctly filled using the isEndpointIsValid function. We create and implement the isEndpointValid function, which checks if the endpoint is valid, not empty, and if the handler is not null. The data here is optional. If it's valid, we add into the list. Next, you go to the run function. Before starting the server, we need to configure. Civet Web has a list of options where the main ones are the port and the directory. And we start the server with img start, passing the options and callbacks, which returns the server instance. If it's valid, we register the endpoints with the endpoint register function, which we created, and we keep it in a while true loop for 1 microsecond delay. And we move on to the response set payload, where we receive the payload and add it to response object. In the same way, for the response set status, we add the attribute to the context. In the response header add, we check if the current number of headers didn't exceed the maximum allowed headers and add it to the list. In response send, we check if there is a payload present. If so, we define how the response will be formatted. Preparing the payload size, start with a buffer to format the size into a string, initialize the header with the status, add the headers to the Civet context. The format size is to string. Add the content length header. Send the header and send the payload. If there is no payload, the response is simple, only we send the status. We implement the isPayloadPresent function. If it checks if the payload is not null and it has some size. We implement response headers apply, which transfers the field list to Civet's header list. In the close, we stop the server and destroy the list. Back into endpoint register, this is where we will register the user handlers. We will create a generic endpoint and call the user endpoints from it. The generic handler will recover the list. After registered handlers, scan the list for a match endpoint. Check if this method for the endpoint is registered. If yes, we invoke the user handler. For the tests, we create a basic HTML and the test rules, passing the path where the static files are located. We add the test to the CMake lists. In the test, we include the headers, create our object, and implement the callback. We will create a couple handlers to test some situations and to test the response as well. We create a Webserver instance with 5 endpoints on port 1234. We init the Webserver and open it using the args. We register all the endpoints. We put the server to run, and we close the server. And now we can implement each one of the endpoints. It will be all the same with some modifications. Here there is no necessity to explain again. We can just watch. We enable SH Webserver for compilation. Some warnings and errors were encountered, which is normal. We missed some returns, which we adjust. For the response error, you were passing the reference, it should be copied, we fix it, we compile everything. If it is good to go, we test directly, testing all registered endpoints. And we have the responses without issues. Now SAT supports a web server. The video became lengthy. In another one, I will adjust the test to make sure everything is correct. That's all for now. I appreciate it if you get here. Don't you forget to hit the subscribe button, leave a comment and share. Knowledge is not enough. Waiting for more. Bye. See you soon.